Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast with Jay Gordon Duncan. And if you're wondering why the J, the answer is, I'm not a bagpipe player. And if that joke doesn't make any sense, I encourage you to check out episode 0, where I explain that joke, as well as the purpose of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast, where we talk about faith, family, fitness, finances, and sometimes fun. Well, welcome, everybody. I appreciate you watching and listening. And join us today is my favorite guest all of a sudden, Mary. This is, I think, the third time you've been on the show. So Mary Tanos from Patriots Tax Service, and give her an opportunity to introduce herself again, because you may just be tuning in. But the big thing, Mary, is we had so much to talk about last time. The audio was so low, so I'm glad we get an opportunity to talk about it. So we might cover some of the same material again, but I've got a lot more questions. But Mary, if you don't mind, another quick introduction just so everyone knows who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gordon, for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you on this show. So my name is Mary. I'm the VP of Client Success at Patriots Tax and Accounting. My background is in accounting, and I switched careers about 20 years ago to work in sales. I climbed the corporate ladder from the bottom up into managing, sales, business strategy, and customer success, working with global companies and conglomerates, high-profile clients all around the world. I lived in a couple countries as well, so blessed to be able to work with different cultures, different business structures, and being able to work with CEOs and businesses to grow their business, to create strategy, build good cultures. I'm a certified business trainer, I'm a certified life coach, and I love public speaking. So also fast forward, all these years, Carlo and I decided to open Patriots Tax and Accounting. It definitely was Carlo's dream to create that business and bring our, experiences to the local community, helping business get access to that knowledge and experience through the services that we provide. I'm a mother of 3 boys, and
Wow.
I wake up every day wanting to make a positive impact in the community.
Well, so I gave you a couple of questions. I'm just not even going to get to them yet, because I want to talk about something you just said. You've shared with me stories about climbing the ladder in other parts of the world, and now you have a locally owned business. What do you enjoy more about being part of your own business? And I'm not saying you didn't enjoy climbing the ladder, but do you enjoy what you're doing now more than climbing the ladder?
You know what? There's a time for everything. I talk to business owners and they say, why did I do that to myself? Why didn't I just get a job, get paid, and not worry about all that work and, ups and downs of owning a business? And my answer to that is, every part of your life, you gotta give it its own share and credit for becoming the person you are today. So I look back, I wouldn't change anything I learned, I wouldn't change any of the challenges that I faced, and I wouldn't just jump into being an entrepreneur and on owning businesses. To me, what I gathered through all these years of being in corporate, climbing the ladder, being challenged, changing careers, and being basically looked at and questioned of my abilities to do that job, and delivering and creating success and creating momentum and proving that I'm able to make it happen. To me, that created who I am today, and it sets the stage for me to be able to be that service provider to the local businesses and the local community.
Well, working in a corporate background where your abilities are questioned is in and of itself a risk. But then starting your own business is amazingly risky.
Absolutely.
Do you have a high threshold for risk?
You know what? Creating limits is basically going to create results that are limited as well, along the way. So I think that you have to accept the fact there's going to be a risk, and you've got to use, all the skills that, we built along the way to be able to mitigate that risk with the gain that you're creating, right? And understanding that there's going to be ups and downs, and understanding that you're going to work a lot, and understanding that there's going to be days where you have no idea what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what to do. So accepting all of that, understanding it, obviously there's going to be a sense of business decisions, there's going to be a sense of financial decisions, there's going to be logic in what you're doing, there's going to be a strategy. You've got to connect all these dots and making sure that you're doing things, you're studying your decisions, and you're partnering with somebody that actually can help you make those better decisions. You're questioning. You gotta have somebody, for example, questioning these decisions and asking you to prove why this makes sense.
Right.
When doing all of that, then take the risk. Take the risk, believe in it, make sure that you are passionate about what you're doing. You focus on the purpose. I think that's key.
Okay.
When people open their businesses, if you focus on the money, you're not going to get the best potential. You've got to focus on what you're delivering, your purpose. What is it that you are giving to the community? What is it that you're providing? And the rest will come.
So one way of doing that, and I'll be interested to see if you use this in your coaching, one way of doing that is visualization, seeing where you want to go and what the outcome you'll be. Professional athletes envision the final shot and making it. When I run the Richmond Marathon, I know every mile, and I will literally sit and think through what I want to feel or what the challenges are at each mile, but I'll also visualize myself crossing the finish line and qualifying for Boston. So is visualization something you do? Do you work with your clients to do that?
You know what? I absolutely am a big fan of visualization.
We've never talked about this. Okay, go ahead.
I actually, I lived all my life doing that, not understanding that it actually makes sense. You know what I mean? I just saw results and I believed in it until I became a coach and know that now it's a skill set and it's a technique to achieve results. You know, in order for you to walk the walk, you've got to see the walk. Right? You've got to go after something that you see, because when you see it, you're gonna believe it. So this is really my model in life. Like I've done things that everybody around me questioned. They're like, this doesn't make sense. You're not qualified. But I saw it and I went after it. And I think, to me, because I did it myself, I 100% believe in it, and I teach it to every person that comes and asks that question, to actually do that and believe in doing that to achieve results.
I love hearing that. There's something that happens between being a child and being an adult. As a child, they'll say, I'm going to do terrible on the test today. And the parent will say, no, don't think that way. But then, as the adult, it's harder to picture a positive or a good outcome. It's easier for us to, well, maybe this is not true of you, but it seems easier to tell a child, no, don't think you're going to do bad on the test. Think you've studied, you've prepared, think you're going to do well, but then harder to apply that personally. Why do you think that is?
You know why? Because as we grow, we use that sense of childish personality that kids do have, right? They approach things way more easier than we do. And as we grow and we face obstacles and we face challenges and our ego grows with us, right? Then we start creating these roadblocks. And to me, this is the reason why we cannot implement and do what we actually ask our kids to do, right? So that kid inside of each one of us, as we get older, we tune it down and we basically block it, because to us, you know what? Life is tough, and we focus on every obstacle along the way rather than focusing on, you know what? Look how kids handle situations, how they make relationships, how they communicate. They don't think and overthink and speculate the way adults do. And I think that's where it is.
Well, when we talk about Patriots Tax Service for a minute, I'm by no means an accountant. Carlo works on a tax return. The return's the return. Like the number is the number. And he does all the wisdom and the knowledge that he has that your client doesn't have. Is there any way, as an accountant, CPA, tax preparation company, to communicate that kind of wisdom and hope when you're dealing with a company, with a client, and it's really about the numbers and the tax return? Does that question make sense? Like how do you incorporate both of those as a company when you're helping a client?
You know, that's a good question, because it actually taps into what we really do when we deal with our clients. So we don't just deal with the numbers, and we don't only deal with, that piece of paper. We go beyond, right? So Carlo is really, really good at what he does, and he's very passionate about it. And it was always his dream to actually make that happen, and that's why we created Patriots Tax and Accounting. And the reason why is he goes beyond the tax return. He goes beyond the payroll. He goes beyond the bank account and the numbers. He looks at it from a CEO perspective. He looks at it from a CFO perspective. He looks at it from a controller perspective because he's done all of these jobs, right? He owns a business, so he looks at it from a business owner perspective. So, and then, basically taking all of that into consideration and providing the feedback and the input into, okay, look at your numbers. You think you're making money, you're actually not making money
Right.
because your liability is way more than the cash in the bank. So simple things like that where, we don't just provide you with that piece of paper. We actually analyze and digest your business. We analyze your strategy. We analyze your sales strategy. We look at your billing. We look at beyond what a typical accountant does. And the reason why is because of the background of what we've done. So I come on that side as well to be engaged on the culture side of things, on the training side of things. I love going into these businesses, supporting them, seeing how they do things and giving feedback. So overall, that's the type of focus that we do when we're dealing with our clients.
So I know when a client is looking for a coach or a CPA, there's something that's distinct about why they're doing that. It's different for each person. But if someone came to you for advice and said, "So what do I think through if I'm looking for a coach or a CPA?" Aside from just Patriots, but if someone said, "Mary, I don't even know where to begin. Like, how do I decide who the CPA is? There's 20 out here, or there's 100 coaches. Like, how does someone decide? How do they make that decision?"
Absolutely. Few steps to take, right? Which I do take it myself when I look for a service provider or a partner or a coach or whatever it is, right? One, understand what you're looking for. Take time to sit down and really understand what you're looking for out of that service so that you're prepared to share your needs. In order for me to deliver on your needs, you've got to also tell me what your needs are. So know what you need. That's one. Number two, do your research. Find out, who am I? What do I do? What's my background? Ask around. Have you worked with this company? What do you think about them? Do your research. Three, make sure you do an interview, because it's key for you to partner with somebody that has the same principles and the same mindset to a certain degree. Sometimes you want somebody to challenge what you do to allow you to grow, but you've got to be aligned on principle. For example, if integrity is important to you, and you know what, it's not all about how much money you're getting back, no matter what way or direction you're going to take, then you find a company that has integrity is key. You know what I mean? So that's important for you to be aligned on what matters to you, what your needs are, who are you dealing with. Spend the time to talk to them, schedule an appointment, sit down, right? And ask questions. Have a list of questions of, tell me, why are you the best partner for me? These are my needs. How are you going to help me accomplish these needs, right? How do you help me accomplish my goals? What do you do different? Ask these questions and then interview a couple so that you have the ability to differentiate who is the best for you, right? And then, of course, trial and error. We learn from our failures, right? If we want to call it failure. I don't like to call it failure.
Right.
I like to call it a redirection, right? So try. Sometimes it's okay to try and not, make the best decision, but you learned out of that what to look for in the next.
Mary, would you say it's a skill or a talent that you have that, and if so, I want to know how or why. So you're in business, you've got multi angles. You may just coach, you may just do the bookkeeping, but sometimes those are all combined. There's had to have been times in the midst of that where you were really hoping to get a client, but you didn't, or you had a client and lost them. Do you feel like you're gifted at separating the emotion from that, or do you feel like it's important to feel it? I mean, how do you approach that? There's tons of business owners out there. I've lost clients and have been saddened by it or disappointed or thought we were going to get one. But so personally, how do you approach it? But then what's your advice on that?
Gifted. I wish I'm gifted. I'm not gifted. I think in that area. I mean, definitely God gives each one of us gifts that we may know or not know about, right? But in that area, I don't think it's a gift. I think it's a skill that we were able to develop along the years and learn. I think that it's part of business to lose business, and it's part of a business to decline business, and that's something I teach all the time. It's important. It's not about the quantity. It's about the quality. It's about the reputation. Again, I don't just like to set that as a standard across everybody. Again, I like to make sure that there's always what if, right?
Right.
Because some businesses, that's what they're after. They're after the quantity. Good for them. That's what they like to do. You gotta be clear on what you're really after. And our focus at Patriots Tax and Accounting is quality. We like to make sure that we're working with businesses that are aligned with us on, respect, integrity, a certain mindset, a certain, way of communicating, right? Because at the end, when you have that solid background to start with, then whatever happens along the way, it will be fixed, right?
I think so. One of the tools, coping mechanisms, skills, I'm not quite sure. I have a tendency to feel those moments when they happen, the disappointment of not getting or losing or whatever the case may be. And I'm very cognizant, at least myself, and this is probably true of most people, that if you don't deal with that emotion, if you have a tendency to just kind of shut it down or try to compensate with something else in light of it, that it's incredibly unhealthy. It's going to cause a problem. It's going to come out somewhere else. And so typically I try to give myself at least a day to feel it fully. Like if it makes me mad, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wrestle with this anger for a day.
Yeah.
But I'm usually wired to say, but I'm gonna start tomorrow morning with like it's a brand new day. It's okay. That one came and went. What skills have you given to your clients when they can't seem to get over the difficult emotions attached to something like that?
I like what you said about you live the moment and then you move on. I think that's key. It's also important to reflect and basically understand, what did I learn from this experience, right? The ability to please everybody is not something that we can take for granted, right? You cannot please everybody. You're going to always have that X percentage of people that no matter what you do, you're not going to please them. So be okay with that. Acknowledge that and move on. You know what I mean? I like to always, look at it as, okay, why are they challenging me? Is there something I can do better? I'll look at that. We'll talk. We'll make sure that we communicate. I definitely give that feedback and I accept feedback. Let's work on it. Let's sit again when we have that background of that base of respect and trust in each other and that good partnership. Then let's talk about it. If that doesn't work, okay, then what can we do better? If that doesn't work, then okay, what would you like us to do for you now? Would you like to continue? If so, how can we make it happen? If we end up in a roadblock, then you know what? We shake hands and we say, you know what? Best of luck. And we do till the end. We do whatever we can to make sure that transition is smooth. We never like to, close doors. We don't burn bridges. It's important. We send the right positive energy towards any situation so that whatever comes back to it will be positive.
Yeah. True. Very hard.
It is.
Very hard to send positive energy or well wishes or a blessing, however you decide that, to someone who's disappointed you or changed their mind or even gone back, perhaps even on their word. Mary, when I went through coaching training, the first thing I realized is that, wow, coaches have coaches. Like it's just continual succession. There's very rarely just one guru who's got it. And so you've told me before in our last interview that you have a coach. So I won't do like what's the best advice. It's too big of a question. But what is good advice or wisdom that your coach has given you?
One thing that stuck with me for the longest time is I was told by one of my coaches, seeking basically people to like you and accept you all the time is the most selfish thing you could do.
How so?
So think about it for a second, right? The most selfish thing you could do is seeking people to like you and accept you. How complicated is that?
But and by no means justification, but people pleasing is it's woven into practically every human being.
Exactly.
Practically.
Yeah, but she told me, be who you are, and that will attract the people that you were meant to be, around
Mm-hmm.
for that reason and that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And when people accept you for the way you are, then that is the right dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And when you continue to put effort into the liking and the pleasing, then that's where, you're basically digging into something that's not real.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting effort into something that, now, we got to keep in mind, it doesn't mean you don't care about people
Sure,
and you don't
sure.
worry about their needs
Sure.
or be compassionate and all of that. No, you still want to do that, but I am very intentional in doing that.
Mhm.
I care about people being okay. To me, it's important. It's one of my purposes, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, it shouldn't be the main focus in every interaction where it becomes exhausting.
So you just said it was one of your purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not asking for anything too intimate. So do you have a quantified? You've written it down, or it? Like these are my 2, 3, 4, 5 purposes.
Yes,
So and is that something you help with your clients?
absolutely.
So some folks' purposes are very faith oriented. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love others as yourself. Right? Loving God and loving others as much as you love yourself. Some others' purposes, well, I'm going to serve. Some people may say, well, mine is to build a business too. I can employ lots of people. So how do you help people figure out what their purpose is?
Well, first of all, one of my purposes
Mhm.
is to bring the best out of every person I interact with. I always like to look beyond what's on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I shared that with you in one of our conversations. I think that's one of the gifts that I was given, is I always see beyond what people see.
Mm-hmm.
I always look for the goodness in every person because I believe it does exist, right? And by doing that, right, I also allow people to find their purposes because now I'm helping them see what they cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm helping them believe in things that they have not thought about, right? So it's a matter of being able to see that beyond what's on the surface and, basically discovering things about the person in front of me that's coming for help
Mm-hmm.
that they can see themselves in a different way. And that allows them to discover more about their purpose.
So as a kid, that's our imagination. We just can imagine. You can imagine. I wanted to be a drummer in a heavy metal band. I set that aside at age 16.
Back to visualization,
right. And so I had the drum kit, did the whole thing, right? But as adults, imagination is so much harder, and it goes back to what we talked about. So you work with a client, and you're helping them kind of work through. Ultimately they're discovering their purpose, right? I would imagine. If you can't discover it yourself, no one can really tell you that. But then, what do you start doing to try to live that purpose? Do you start looking for things to eliminate? You start looking to things to add? What's the next step when you feel like a client's really nailed that down?
So it's a process,
Mhm.
right? And this is where I can help. We start by understanding the challenges that we're creating or that client is creating for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We start analyzing basically what these limiting beliefs are. We work on the different skills and the different tools for us to, basically as much as possible be able to eliminate those limiting beliefs or create them, empower them to be able to handle that limiting beliefs or that thought when it comes to mind. The reality is we will always have these thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
The key here is how do we handle these thoughts so that we acknowledge it and keep going rather than putting us down. So that's the first step.
Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. So limiting beliefs is language that's become more common in the last few years. I know it's been around a long time. Began to have widespread influence with Tony Robbins and the work he did.
Yeah.
And out of that came two concepts that get talked about a lot. I'd like to know if you think you believe in them. So out of that, two ideas have become a poverty mindset or scarcity mindset. And then on the other hand, it's been called lots of other things, a wealth or abundance mindset. So I think abundance and scarcity mindset are the terms that get used most often. Do you believe there's such a thing? And is there a value in it? Do you think there's an abundance and a scarcity mindset?
There's a mindset for everything. Of course, it does exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the bottom line is whether we call it abundance, scarcity, whether we call it empowerment and beliefs, whether we call it whatever we want to call it, right? The bottom line is how do we handle it? and what do we do to address that thought process? Because at the end, what we think is what makes us who we are today, right? Our thoughts is our reality, because it creates the emotions, and the emotions creates the actions, and the actions is who we are, right? So, I think the bottom line is, I know that's something that, we both like to do with our clients, is that understanding whatever that means to them, right? And empowering them to be able to handle it as a first step, right? If we go back to your initial question about the steps of, okay, I know my purpose now, what do I do next? So now empowering them with tools like that, understanding that ability to handle the emotions and the thoughts when they come to mind, right? And then 2, setting the right strategy to be able to execute. It's a process. You gotta follow certain steps in order for you to bring results, right? So working with them on the skill set and the mindset. And the next step is, how do we execute? By writing your goals, tracking your goals, making sure that you set the right KPIs, making sure that you continue to improve, making sure that you're have the personality where you're willing to adapt, you're willing to adjust, you're willing to change based on the responses to what you've done.
So KPIs are key performance indicators. So someone who may not be familiar with that, what's a key performance indicator?
So it could be, for example, it can be many things depending on your business or your personal goals. But like a KPI could be, for example, your revenue. What's your revenue for the year? A KPI could be the number of customers you want to bring in a certain month.
So whether you're on track or not, that
exactly.
kind of, okay.
So
okay.
It's basically a number or something, an indicator that represents your abilities to execute on the goal. So you follow that indicator in order for you to know, okay, am I doing well, or do I need to adjust?
How often is it necessary, maybe even you don't do it, how often is it necessary as a CPA company, to convince someone that they need a CPA? Someone may say, listen, I just can't afford it. I'm just going to do Quicken taxes. I've done it for years, and listen, you can do that. But I mean, do you try to convince clients, or to some measure go, listen, and this would be for you guys or any other CPA out there, like how important it is? Do you do that?
Honestly, it's tough. If somebody doesn't see that and at least willing to talk about it and challenge what we can do, we don't go after customers that way, right? Or clients. If I have to convince you to open a bank account, I mean, you need a bank account, right? So if you need a bank account, then you have a business, and you have payroll, and you have bookkeeping, and you have an entity. You need an accountant, unless you're an accountant, right? So it's kind of like a given. I'm not going to sit and convince you, but I can sit and discuss with you the benefits that you're gaining. I can discuss with you what we can do together to grow your business. I can discuss with you what you can do better in order to get more results and manage your financials and get a better return, or be able to file the right documents and the right forms. This is the stuff that I can sit and talk to. Well, Carlo, he's better than me.
Sure,
he's the master with that stuff. But this is the stuff that we can offer. But if, just like coaching, if you don't believe there's an area that is missing, or an area that you need to improve, then I'm not going to sit and convince you.
Sure,
you got to see it in order for me to discuss it with you and help you. But if you don't see it, at least that there's an area that you want to improve, then it's not the right client.
So Mary, I'm going to wrap up with this question. So folks who've listened to this podcast, like I love to talk about, this is going to hurt. The whole idea is you're going to have to overcome that. You're going to have to go through a measure of pain or discomfort to hit any goal that you want. And so that's giving us opportunities to talk about a million different topics. So you're world traveled, world experienced. Last podcast, you shared some of the difficulties and even some of the failures, or the struggles at least. So you've got this 60 seconds, and there's folks out there listening, and so you've got an audience all of a sudden, and you get to sit up to the mic. What general encouragement to people who are struggling to overcome something right now what just, when, I mean, it's very broad, but like what 60 seconds of encouragement would you give when people are like, I just don't know if I can accomplish this or overcome this? What would you say to them?
I would say, first, it's okay to not be okay. I always say that. It's okay to not be okay. So please don't feel like you're alone. It is, many people are struggling. Even the most successful, they still struggle, right? The other advice I give is that don't judge from the outside, right? Don't look at somebody, for example, successful and compare yourself. In order for them to be successful, or the reason that they're successful is that they kept going, they believe they can do it, they saw it. Visualization, right? So I definitely push everybody to visualize and plan and dream, and you know what, continue to think outside the box. And you know what, even if you're struggling, and it is tough, it is a very tough time for everybody, right? But I know it's hard to be positive, sometimes it's hard to get out of bed, it's hard to continue to maintain that momentum, right? But surround yourself with the people that can give you that advice and can be that voice that you need when your voice is pushing you down. I think that's the most important thing right now, is that nobody can do it alone.
Right.
Think of every successful person out there and every entrepreneur in their stories, and I challenge it, right? I would love to hear back from the audience if they know of a different story, but everybody had somebody that believed in them, that gave them the right voice. So look for that somebody. Invest in that. Put time to it. If you really want to make a change, it starts with you taking a step forward, right? So invest in that. Look for a coach, look for a counselor, look for a mentor, look for somebody that gives you that voice that you need to get out of it. You cannot get out of it alone. Don't put that pressure on yourself. Ask for help.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
Well, I love that you started that with not comparing yourself. Because when we do that, we have a tendency to compare someone else's best day to our worst day. And they've had those worst days. They have. Everybody has had those worst days. But there's a tendency when we see people succeeding, and we widen the gap between us and them, and the gap between us is so much closer than we actually think.
Absolutely.
And then we've also got to teach ourselves that we're going to have those days, and well, are we giving the example to others to let them know, no, I've had those bad days. I had that bad day yesterday, those kind of things as well. So I think you're right. Comparison is the thief of joy. It really is. So, well, Mary, again, we can always talk. I love you being here. Thank you so much. And again, what's the best way to get in touch with you and Carlo?
So you can definitely call us 540-412-5250. We're on Instagram at Patriots Tax. We're on Facebook, Patriots Tax and Accounting, and of course our website, www.patriotstaxservice.com.
Okay. Everyone, thanks so much for listening and watching. If you like this, please like, share, let other people know about it, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
The time it takes to buy a car buying just got easier. Pohanka365.com lets you complete as much or as little of the car buying process online. Pohanka365.com. Car buying simplified. Anytime, anywhere.